Okay, moving on with the subject of sweep picking, I want to take a look at some ideas that move away from more just the three-string arpeggios that we've been looking at in this section. There's going to be a few different things that might be a little bit different than what you're expecting. You know, with the kind of every pattern seems to go straight up and straight down the same way. Now, for me, I kind of change a lot of my perception of playing some of these arpeggios. Mainly because of my own kind of boredom with certain types of sounds. I'm always kind of trying to look for things that sound a little bit different. And also, I think, you know, when I was a lot younger, I had some stuff by like Richie Kotzen, and I mean, I'm not about to start teaching Richie Kotzen next, but the concept behind a lot of his sweep picking was, you know, to kind of go up or down an arpeggio shape and then up or down another straight afterwards. So, you know, you'd end up going you know, down a minor arpeggio and then up a sort of major arpeggio, if you like. The kind of thing, I mean, at a slow tempo, you'd probably be looking at something like this. That kind of thing. So, you know, there was a lot of that going on in my playing fairly early on when I started to get my head around sweep picking, which is probably why I've become a bit lazy with it, because I discovered that, you know, you could do part sweeps into things and then you could do hammer-ons and pull-offs in other places just to kind of make things a little bit more varied. But I'm going to take you through some ideas that I like to use within, you know, playing standard minor arpeggios. We're going to keep this in B minor again, like some of the other examples. So I mean, the 5-string shape that is normal for this kind of arpeggio is going to look like this. Okay, so the frets for that, I mean, it's going to be tabbed with this anyway, so I'm just going to try and explain the frets on camera. But this is 14 on the high E, 8 on the 10 on the high E, then 12 on the B, 11 on the G, 12 on the D, and then 14 on the A. And that's your standard minor arpeggio. No matter what key you're in, that's pretty much what most players use to sort of sweep up and down, you know, to practice that technique. You know, if you want to just practice doing the up and down sweeping, you would literally do the same thing as what I said before, from the A string to the high E string without even worrying about the left hand. You could just kind of rake through that while muting the strings with your left hand. So. Okay, so if you wanted to do like multiple picking on the top high string, you could do that as well. But you could simulate that with your right hand. You know, if you wanted to do some extra notes or something like that, you can practice the right hand pattern without worrying about the left hand, no matter what it is. Even if you've learnt something from another piece of music or something like that, you can pretty much get the sweep pattern with your right hand and then just get used to that first. But yeah, you know, the left hand, I mean, starting on the A string, 14th fret, I mean, you're going to have this kind of thing. Okay, so that's a good way of being able to just practice up and down doing your sweep picking. For me, in the kind of real life situation, I like to play stuff that, obviously, you know, I mean, I work a great deal on my technique and all the rest of it, but I don't want to get on stage and have to play a load of stuff which I just find damn near impossible, like every night, like to play or whatever. So I try and find ways around, you know, playing some of this stuff, which sounds pretty cool, it's pretty musical, and it's not, you know, too stressful to play. For me, you know, my sweep picking is always more comfortable going that way than it is that way for some reason. I think because I do a lot of alternate picking, starting on an upstroke, and my pick sort of angled into the guitar rather than away, sort of going down the other way. So, you know, some of the 2-string alternate picking stuff. My pick's already kind of going into the guitar all the time. So, you know, doing that kind of, you know, it's kind of easier for me to do that. So I've kind of decided that that's a strength with sweep picking, and but my weakness is kind of going up the other way, and I've spent ages on it to know that I'm never really going to quite get it, and I'm getting a bit old now to start worrying about stuff like that. But some other techniques that I am pretty good at are string skipping. So what I want to do is try and incorporate, or start to incorporate, some different ideas within sweeping. I mean, I know this is in the sweeping category, but in the real world, when you start to interchange different techniques and stuff like that, you're not really going to be focusing on one technique at any given time. All of these techniques, sweeping, legato, picking, tapping, they all start to mesh into one overall technique of any guitar player. So, you know, you need to start to get used to breaking out of just doing one technique for practice and then going on to another technique for practice. Because what you need to do is try and incorporate different techniques together, so they end up making like workable licks or ideas that actually work in a musical context. So okay, my sort of plan for going back up this arpeggio actually is string skipping, and the shape is going to look like this. So it's got the first note is the 10th fret on the A. Then the second note is actually the first note of the normal B minor arpeggio. Then we're just going to take this middle bit. Now the 11th fret is part of the arpeggio, but the 12th fret is being added in there as well. And then the last two notes feature in that normal minor arpeggio. Okay, so it sounds pretty cool once you speed it up. You know, so it's got quite a nice roll to it, and you're not always using sweep picking technique all the time to kind of get the job done. You're combining two different techniques to create a slightly different sound, which, you know, I think is quite important, really. But, you know, there's different variations that you can do on that. Instead of just going straight down the arpeggio, instead of just going, you could okay, so you could sequence the top half of the arpeggio with sweeping. So and then again, you know, you can start to kind of break out of that once you get comfortable. But you know, that's one of the approaches that I like to use with kind of going up arpeggios. You can kind of do it the other way as well. You know, so it kind of works both ways. You can start with the string skipping, and then you can go into the sweep picking. Again, you're still combining the two techniques, but it's another way of being able to look at it, which is another thing that I like to try and do. If I learn a new technique or whatever, I want to try and see how many different ways I can sort of, you know, get my head around it. You might want to start in the middle of that lick. You know, so again, there's another way that you can look at that arpeggio. So you can start on the high E string, you can start on the A string, or you can start in the middle of the arpeggio and use the same shape. So all of those things kind of go together, and it gives you three different patterns within one shape that you've worked quite hard to, you know, kind of memorize and all that kind of stuff. And you know, that's generally my approach to most things, is kind of learn the actual shape, learn the mechanics of it, and then learn how you can manipulate it and how you can fit it in to your own playing. So as soon as you learn any new stuff like that, you know, try and go away, and anything else that you've accumulated through your playing or knowledge of playing, try and incorporate this into that as well, and then hopefully you can start to see all these different techniques mesh together.